All right, and we are live. Appreciate you guys tuning in today. Like I said, definitely got a dope guest today. So without further ado, my boy introduce himself. What's going on, man?
Yo, what's good, man? It's Tanei Ricks. Got Ph.D. in chemistry from University of Tennessee, Knoxville, 2017. I'm currently a postdoc at the University of Memphis. My dissertation at UT was in chemical biology. I investigated uh, mechanisms of lipid trafficking and lipid signaling, and my postdoc work is a lot different. So my graduate research was more on the chemical biology side, where my postdoc is now on the organometallic, just hardcore organic synthesis side. So it's a little bit different, but that's where I'm at now.
Okay, dope. So for people who may not be aware, what got you to the interest of getting into science and getting into that whole aspect in the industry?
Oh man, so all right, so I had a chemistry teacher in high school named Miss Kennedy, and I used to call her Miss Chemistry, and it
Hmm.
was funny because like she was kind of like the first person that really got me into science, or just like really like showed me like, yo, you could do something with this, and I'm okay, all right, this is cool. So when I was in high school, we had different paths that we could take, and chemistry was actually, so I was on the honors college prep, I was on the honors college prep track, and chemistry was actually, so chemistry 2 was optional. You had to take honors chemistry 1, but chemistry 2 was optional, so I ended up taking both of them, and I took the second one because I really enjoyed the first one. So that was really kind of what got my love for chemistry started. And when I ended up going to college, like that was the first, like I immediately majored in chemistry. Like I knew that's what I wanted to do. I knew that's where I was going to go. So she was really the first person that really kind of fostered that in me.
Okay, cool. So when we think of chemistry, right? I know some people, I know for myself, I remember taking in high school, 10th grade, one of the hardest class I've ever taken, study for life. I was like, yo, this is it, I'm done. But what are the different type of concentrations that go into chemistry?
Oh man, so like chemistry is a little bit of everything, man. And it's funny because like when you actually start working in the lab, it's a lot different from being in class. Because when you're in the lab, you got to know a little bit of like physics, you got to know a little bit of biology, you got to know a little bit of you actually have to be a good writer. So like when you actually start getting ready to publish your data and publish your results, like you have to write all that stuff up. So chemistry has a lot of different disciplines that goes into it. So that's why I really feel like if people want to maximize their education when they go into college, that you pick a hard science like that, because the hard sciences encompass so many other subjects that you use,
Hmm.
and they use it in a practical way. So it's not like you're doubling down on like art or some shit like that, where you
Right, right,
actually
right.
do have to draw in chemistry. You actually have to draw molecules, you have to draw
Mm,
figures, you have to draw shapes and stuff like that. So
right.
there's a lot of different disciplines that fit into chemistry. Chemistry influences so much of our daily life, whether it's the clothes you wear, the food you eat, the colors that you see, like the paint that's on your wall, like the gas that goes into your car, like all that stuff has some kind of chemistry involved in it. So
Right.
chemistry really affects a lot of different aspects of our lives that people are not aware of. And so that was one of the things I wanted to do with like my degree, and be more into like the chemical education side of it, and getting people, because a lot of people feel like chemistry is the boogeyman, that's the monster in the room, like
Right,
any of
right.
those hard sciences, it's chemistry. A lot of people are okay with biology, but chemistry and physics are the two hard sciences that people like, nope, keep me away from that.
Right.
So I really wanted to show people that, like, chemistry is cool. Like, you do it every day. Do you cook? Yeah. So you do chemistry. Do you drive? Yeah, you do chemistry. Do you write? Yeah, you do chemistry. Like, it's people just don't think about it like that. And
Right.
so trying to
Mm.
basically make it practical, and try to just basically bring everyday situations into it, so people can see like, oh, chemistry is something I use every day that's actually not that hard. Like, I think what really trips people up is the words and the jargon.
Mm.
But once you get past that, you start doing the actual practical stuff, then it's easy. I feel like it's easy enough for everybody to learn if you actually apply yourself to it.
Okay. And that's real dope. And that was a really cool way for you to break it down, just as chemistry kind of encompasses all the various elements of like math, reading, English, writing, drawing, and all those elements come together. And it kind of makes sense as chemistry is like, the makeup of everything. So it kind of makes sense that it would involve almost a makeup of all different disciplines. So as we look at chemistry and we speak about, with science, Obviously, right now we are still hopefully coming out of the midst of a global pandemic and dealing with this COVID-19 and this COVID virus. I know early on, I remember, a year ago when it first started coming out, I remember you would do some threads and stuff talking about this and kind of the chemistry of this. So if you could, explain for us in well, I guess for people who can generally understand it, what is COVID from a medical aspect? Is it similar to the flu, like a lot of people say? Like what is this?
Okay, yeah. So I call it SARS remix because it's a different variant of the original SARS virus that came and that was in China. I think it was like 2003, 2000.
Yeah.
It might have been like 2009 maybe.
Yes.
It was, I don't think it's been about a decade. So I
yeah.
guess like 2009, 2011 maybe. I could be getting my dates wrong, but there's the original SARS virus
Right.
came from China. And this one, we obviously have mounting evidence that this one came from China too, that it leaked from a lab in Wuhan. Whether or not that happened, I'm not here to discuss that. But it's a variant of that virus. And essentially what happened was that with the original SARS virus is not as virulent as this SARS virus is, meaning it doesn't spread as fast as this one, as the new SARS virus does. The other thing about the old SARS virus too is that the old SARS virus is actually more fatal than the current one is. I think the death rate for that for the original SARS virus was right around 10% for people that did it global. I think for people that were in China, because it didn't spread. So it was about 10% death rate for people that got it in China. And like the global death rate for COVID right now is like 2-3%. So it's a lot. So it spreads a lot more, but it's not as deadly as the original SARS virus is. So I will say that, this virus is not a hoax. People are saying that it's like, this is the result of 5G poisoning. That's bullshit. It doesn't have anything to do with, it doesn't have anything to do with 5G. Could 5G be making it so that your immune system is a little bit weaker? That is possible, but the SARS, like this virus is not caused by 5G. Let's go ahead and get that out of the paint. What this virus is though, is it's a respiratory virus, like the original SARS virus. So that's why a lot of the symptoms present as the flu, because you have a lot of the same things and a lot of the same symptoms that happen as a result of the flu. One of the main things is the cytokine storm that they were talking about, which essentially what happens is that it's an overreaction of your immune system to whatever pathogen is inside your body. So basically what happens is this virus has a lot of similar elements to the flu, where the flu can disable your immune system using a protein called hemagglutinin. So I'll break that down for you. So hemoglobin, everybody knows hemoglobin is a component of red blood cells. So hemagglutinin is a protein that makes blood cells stick together. And so remember that your blood cells transport oxygen. So if your blood cells are stuck together, then your body cannot carry oxygen as well. So that's part of how people, one of the symptoms that they do is that they do pulse ox. They look at the saturation of O2 in your blood. And if it's low, then it's supposed to indicate that that's a marker of infection, because those blood cells sticking together means that your oxygen saturation is going to go down inside of your blood. So that combined with the fact that everybody's talking about the spike glycoprotein. So essentially what this virus does, it has a protein that's the spike GP that embeds into your cells. And when that happens, you have to remember that this glycoprotein, we have proteins in our body too. So we also have enzymes in your body that can cut up different proteins. So like the flu has a cleavage site on hemagglutinin that once it gets into your blood, it chops off this molecule called nagalase. And nagalase stands for N-acetylgalactosaminidase. I know that's a mouthful. You ain't got to repeat it or nothing like that, but just know that nagalase, there's a factor in your body called GC-MAF. So the GC-MAF complex is what essentially turns on your macrophages. And your macrophages are the cells that come in and eat up all the foreign invaders that are in your body. So the GC-MAF complex has three sugars attached to the outside of it. So what nagalase does is it comes in and it cuts those sugars off. And if you cut those sugars off, then the GC component can't bind to it. And if the GC component can't bind to the MAF complex, the GC MAF complex can't form. Your macrophages never get turned on, and the virus just keeps replicating. So that's how it fades detection from your immune system. But that can only go on for so long until your immune system actually catches it. So when your immune system catches it, then the cytokine storm is what normally happens, where you have a lot of different inflammatory factors come in, and they're basically signaling like, hey, there's some stuff going on over here and we need to clean this up. But what happens is an overreaction of your immune system, because your immune system is basically like, oh shit, where did all this come from? So it starts to bring in all these different factors, and then it actually starts to accumulate fluid in your lungs. And so that's why people end up, it's basically like dry drowning. It's not quite the same thing, but it's you basically, and that's where the secondary infections of pneumonia come from. People don't actually die from the virus. It's a lot like HIV, where people actually die from the secondary complications of the virus. The virus don't kill nobody. The stuff that you get because of the virus is what's actually killing you. So that's how those two things are really similar. Hemagglutinin from the flu does this. It can stop GC-MAF, and then the spike glycoprotein from COVID can also do the same thing. When it embeds into your cells, you have these enzymes come in, they'll recognize that cleavage site, it'll chop that off, and then it'll send off another molecule that will then turn your immune system off, and then it can just start replicating.
Okay, so that's interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, if it is a bioweapon, which I'm not gonna say one way or the other what it is, it's, you know, as far as like spreading, you know, it does its job, and it because it looks like something else, it was a little bit harder to treat at first. People thought it was just the flu. So you know, on the global scale, and you know, just as a pandemic, like, you know, yeah, because the way it spread is a pandemic, but like as far as, you know, death rates and stuff like that, I'm not really buying it. That's just my opinion. You know, we could talk about that all day, but
subjectivity gets to that then.
Yeah, and you know, people talk about, you know, like the long-term effects, but it's like, man, if you look up some of the long-term effects that's with this virus, a lot of them are with the flu too. So like, you know, you're coming down, like you're running into the same problem. The only thing that this virus has really exposed is how bad the U.S. healthcare system is. Like it's just really showed that, like, you know, we just can't sustain this many people going to the hospital. But the messed up thing about it is that a lot of these people don't need to go to the hospital if they were actually educating them, you know, what vitamins and minerals they need to be taking, you know, just steps that they can do at home so that, you know, they can stay home, and, you know, and that even stops the spread because you're not coming into contact with all these other people and spreading it. You in your house, you contain, everything is good. If people would actually teach you like what to do at home, then you would be fine, but they don't do that. So that's why you're overburdening your healthcare system, and then you want to blame it on everybody else, not social distancing and not doing XYZ. But it's like the government and the health officials are also not giving people all the tools that they need to stay healthy and be healthy and stay out of the hospital. They're trying to get people to come in there
in the hospital
versus getting them to stay home, which doesn't make any sense if you want people socially distancing. So I mean, it is what it is.
And it's very interesting, and kind of you broke down there, and thank you for it very in-depthly. There's so many different elements that come into this, right? You have almost a political element, right? Whether, you know, when it originated at Wuhan in China, you know, it's been known that whistleblowers and stuff were silenced from speaking about this. Information they did not share information with the World Health Organization. They had a very, very slow response, and, you know, we can get to that, you know, endeavors about whether they're more transparent. Could this have been, you know, handled differently? But then again, just dealing with our own government, you know, United States healthcare, which has been a problem for years and years and years and years, especially people within the Black community knows that maybe more than anyone else, due to disparities, but just in general, just the logistical aspect. And so getting to that point, right, what we're seeing is that, you know, with this, one thing you kept referencing often is the immune system, right? And what we're seeing is that they say we're seeing people who are generally contracting, and mostly who do are that few percentage who unfortunately have a lethal reaction to it. It's people who are generally either overweight, obese, the elderly, or people with previous, you know, health conditions, right? And I'm understanding is that as due to a weakened immune system makes them more susceptible to that then?
Some of it is immune system, but also you have to take into account too, a lot of these people are taking, you know, 3-4 different medications, man. So like that's the other thing that people are not talking about. Like people are not talking about like how, you know, these other comorbidities are working together with this virus. It's like the average American takes 3 different prescriptions. So you don't even know like what this virus is doing in conjunction with those medicines. And some of these over the counter medicines that people take, you know, like Tylenol and ibuprofen and shit like that, it actually depresses your immune system. So if you've been eating
Interesting.
Tylenol like candy for the past 10 years, yeah, you're gonna
Right.
get fucked up by this virus. Like it just is
Interesting.
what it is. Like, I mean, it's a lot of it and it also exposes how bad the healthcare system is. It also exposes how bad Americans live too. So like I think that's really what's being highlighted, is that Americans have horrible lifestyles. I'm not exempt from that. Like there's a lot
Right.
of people out here that are not, you know, like you stressed out all the time, you know, you on the go all the time, you're not really taking out the time that you need for yourself. And
Right.
so, you know, you get caught slipping on the back end. It just so happened that it just happened with this virus. It was gonna happen to the majority of these people anyway. The
Right.
majority of people probably weren't going to die. They were probably going to die a slow death, but you were still going to die at like a painful death at any point
Right.
in time, because like you're not taking care of yourself. Like this is
Right.
what it is. So with this virus and you know all the other comorbidities that come with it, man, it's like that's, I mean, if people were to actually like live better, start taking better care of themselves, like the mortality rate probably wouldn't even be as high as it is right now, and you probably wouldn't see as many of the long-term effects that people are seeing. And it's really just a consequence of people got to be more scientifically literate. They got to be more, you know, just biochemically literate and
Mhm.
know like what to do when these things come about. Because if anything has been shown here, the government is not going to do what is in your best interest for you.
Right.
They're going to do what is in the best interest for them. Like whatever's
Right.
going to make them more money, whatever is going to, you know, get them more power, that's what they're going to do. And they've shown that. So it's like, you know, I don't know how many times people got to see, you know, the circus before, you know, they start getting the
Mhm.
clowns up out of here, you
Right.
know.
Right. Right.
That's what it
So,
is.
so to that point, right? I know right now, just in terms of, treatment and prevention, right? The main things people stress is, wearing masks, social distancing. I know they try to have, lockdowns to prevent, shutdowns and stuff to prevent people from being in mass gatherings and stuff. So initially, like when, the virus came out, especially with the mask part, right? There was so much misinformation out there back and forth whether masks work or effective. I mean, I saw Dr. Fauci himself come on record and say wearing masks are not effective. Then later on, recanted that and said wearing masks is effective. And then obviously that's, in America, it's become a political issue at least. But just from a medical scientific aspect, right? Is wearing masks in 6 feet social distancing, is that truly, truly effective? Or is that based off a theory right now?
So on a micro scale, yes, it is effective, because if you think about what the mask is designed to do, it's designed to block particles. So like,
Right.
yeah, the mask is going to block X amount of particles that come out of your mouth. It's just not going to block all of them.
Right.
So it is going to reduce some symptom risk of other people. But the problem is that if you're a healthy person, you don't need to wear a mask. Like masks are for sick people. Like if you are
Mm,
healthy, that mask should be blocking the particles that come out of this person's mouth anyway. So like,
right.
and if you're socially distancing, it's definitely not gonna get anywhere close to you. So these measures on the surface, yes, they are okay. The problem is that even if you wear a mask and you socially distance, if you come into contact with this virus and your immune system is garbage, you're gonna catch it. Like you're gonna get sick. Like
Right.
so you can wear every single mask on the planet. Like you can stay away from people for the rest of your life. But if you know come into a space that has COVID in it, like if your immune system is garbage, you're probably gonna get it. Like so that's all roads lead back to the immune system, man. Like,
Mm,
and it's
okay.
funny because people want to do everything but strengthen their immune system. Like everybody want to wear a mask, everybody want to take a vaccine, but it's like,
Right.
bro, even the vaccine requires your immune system to be good. If your immune system is garbage, the vaccine's not gonna work. So like
Right.
it's all roads lead back to strengthening your immune system. Like, yeah, the other stuff is helpful to an extent, but you also have to understand too that like this pandemic is making people money that they wouldn't normally make, whether it's coming from masks, is like
Mm,
the disposable masks, the
mhm.
the theme masks, then the vaccine, the companies that's making the vaccine, they get money off of that.
Hand sanitizer
Hand
companies,
sanitizer.
cleaners.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
like even
Yeah.
the liquor companies are getting in on it because they
Oh
converted
yeah.
some of their stuff
Funny.
over to
Woo.
hand sanitizer. So it's like everybody's out
Yeah.
here scooping up money that wouldn't normally be here. So like for the people that are capitalists and have a financial stake in this, it's better for them for the pandemic to continue to go on versus we giving people the proper education to do what they need to do.
Let me ask you a question about the hand sanitizer because I've heard interesting views on this. So I've heard on one hand how in the long term using a bunch of hand sanitizers can maybe lower your immune system because you're
Mhm.
constantly putting like alcohol into your skin to kill virus and bacteria. Is that true, or is that something that's kind of
Yeah.
not?
So what happens actually is that so you have a layer of oil that's on the outside of your skin, and
Mm,
alcohol is an organic solvent. So that alcohol can dissolve that oil and it'll make your skin dry. And if your skin is dry, it's more easy for it to be penetrated. So you can
interesting.
have other stuff get into your skin, um, or get into your body that wouldn't normally be able to get into it by constant hand sanitizer use because you're drying your hands out. On the other part of that too is that if you have a company that makes that makes hand sanitizer and they don't and their stuff is not pure, whatever is dissolved in the hand sanitizer can actually penetrate your skin as well. So you have two things that you have to worry about with the manufacturing method for the hand sanitizer and then the actual solvents that they're using. Being organic solvents, because of that, they will strip the oil off of your skin, and your skin is your first line of defense. So, like if your skin layer is weakened, then obviously it's going to be easier for microbes and pathogens to get in and do what they want to.
Okay. And so with that, right? I know so with COVID, so a lot of people, right, who feel like earlier this year, right, although it didn't hit US officially till like March, right? So they
Mm-hmm.
say. A lot of people who felt like, late December, early January, February, and personally, I was one of those people too. Got mad sick like earlier this year, stuff like that, right? And especially, I was one of those people who felt like I had really flu-like symptoms and stuff. I remember I even went to a doctor. If anyone knows me, like I don't bang with a doctor. So if I'm going to a
Mm-hmm.
doctor, it's like on something I feel like I'm about to die type
Right.
thing. And so, actually went to the doctors and they couldn't really figure out what was wrong. I was like, oh, it seemed like flu symptoms. And so in general, I know people who get COVID, right? From my understanding, you develop antibodies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we want to start leading to our next point when we start getting to this idea of vaccination or vaccine, right? If you have previously developed COVID, right, and you have antibodies, do you can you catch it again, and B, would you need a vaccine?
All right. So this is actually kind of a tricky question because the original SARS virus, there's a paper I read. I have to dig it back up to see exactly what it was, but there's a paper I read like earlier this year where because what I was trying to do was whenever you have something like this that's unknown, but you have precedent for it, you tend to look at the precedent first. And we already do have precedent for what this virus does because
Right.
we have another version of it. So with that one, they studied the innate immunity of people in China. I think it was like 2 or 3 years after they contracted the virus, and they found I think it was like 50 or 60%. It may have been higher too. 50 or 60% of the people that had previously contracted the original SARS virus had lost their immunity to it within 2 to 3 years.
Mm,
So what they're saying, the timetable, what I've seen, just loose information, I can't verify it, but loose information I've seen on the internet is, you lose immunity, after a year or so, if
mm,
you contract it naturally. So to me, it doesn't make sense for somebody to get like if you got the virus, let's say you got the virus in March, it doesn't make sense that you would then test positive for it again in like July or August. Like it's just you should still have enough immunity and you should still have the antibodies there to pick up, hey, all right, this stuff is in here, get it out of here.
right.
And it's funny because, people talk about, oh, this might be a seasonal thing like the flu. It's like, okay, well then why the hell are you giving people a vaccine for it, making them think that it's going to stop it for life.
Right. Right. Of
And
course.
the average
Yeah.
person, even though the companies don't come out and say, oh yeah, this is a vaccine for life, like the average person is thinking that they're like, okay, if I take this vaccine, I'm good. And that's not true
Right.
because
Right. Right.
that's one of the reasons why for these mRNA
Mm,
vaccines, you have to have multiple doses of it because your body degrades the mRNA so fast that you may not even get a chance to build up the immunity to it. And the other problem with that is that, again, if your immune system is garbage, you are not going to form the antibodies that you need to then have your body recognize COVID when it's in your body. So again, all
mm,
roads lead back to your immune
absolutely.
system. So
Okay.
I think that a lot of the people that have quote unquote caught it twice, I think one time it was a false positive, and I think that the other time may have actually been true because these PCR tests are not 100% accurate. They are guesses, they are good guesses, but
Hmm.
they are still guesses at the end of the day. And the original pioneer of the technique that came up with the PCR technique, Kerry Mullis, he got several interviews out there where he's like, this is not the technique that you need to be using to quantify whether or not a virus, like live virus, is in somebody's body. Like, it's just not the correct technique to use. Since then, they have come up with real-time PCR, which is what this test is, which is supposed to be a little bit more accurate than regular PCR, but it still does account for a lot of false positives. And there have been several articles that came out about, the way that these PCR tests are done. You can get a false positive from it, and it's fairly easy to get a false positive from it. So you got to be really careful about, that's why the asymptomatic spread is bullshit. Like, asymptomatic spread is not a thing. Fauci came out and said it at the beginning of the pandemic, then he ended up having to backtrack because people in his pocket. But asymptomatic spread is not a thing.
So to clarify that, you mean in terms of, so people, like you say, asymptomatic, where you don't have any symptoms and stuff, right? But you supposedly tested positive for it. They're saying that those people, right, are not contagious then, or those people are not the one that are spreading the virus. Is that what you mean by that?
Right. The asymptomatic spread, like the dry, and Fauci said it, has even said, been on record saying that asymptomatic spread is not the main driver of contagion during a pandemic. There's no way it can be. Like, if you're not presenting any symptoms, how are you getting other people sick? Like, that doesn't make any sense. The virus may have an incubation period of XYZ, but if this virus is as virulent and as bad as y'all say it is, why is it taking your immune system this long to even pick it up, or for you to even start showing symptoms? Like, there are elements of the virus that can fade detection, but when you have the flu, you got the flu.
Right.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing with this virus. And it's just like, a lot of the spread is coming from people that know that they're infected, but they still go do what the fuck they want to anyway. And that's the problem. The problem is not asymptomatic spread. It's people that know that they're infected, but they still go do whatever. And that's the irresponsible part, and that's where people are talking about, and that's where they try to blame it on people that are not staying home. But it's like, if you're healthy, you don't have to stay home. But if you're not healthy and you're not healthy, you are being irresponsible by going out and knowing how virulent this virus is, and then going out and coming into contact with other people. Stay home, get it resolved, and then you can go out and do whatever you want to. A couple weeks later, you'll be fine. It's just like, I think it was a couple weeks ago where I guess a guy died on a flight because of the virus, and his wife told the people that it's like he knew he had the virus before he got on the plane, and it's stuff like that. It's not people not wearing, not people not socially distancing. It's people knowing that they're infected and still doing what they want to anyway.
Yeah, it's crazy to say that, because I know at one point somebody I know of, and not to say their name, but they want to go a trip to Puerto Rico. Right, this is about a couple months ago. And so to go obviously out the country, you need to have a negative COVID test, right? Even though Puerto Rico is part of the United States, but out the country, you know what I mean? So they basically, the COVID test results may take sometime up to 2 weeks to get results on it. So they really want to go. So apparently they had some plug for someone who could forge medical records. So they forged a medical record that said that they were cool, right? They had negative tests. Fly to Puerto Rico. They get to Puerto Rico. Couldn't find out they all actually have COVID. Actually call them. So, but they decided to leave? No, but they're like, hey, we're in Puerto Rico. We're going to do stay in. So they went out and everything like that in Puerto Rico, and then came back to the United States. And it's like that, because we're the first people to blame like Trump and government for like stuff messing up. It's like, okay, but it's like, what you out here like doing? You like, Trump's fault now. Like, it's people, and that's one thing I try to stress is like, even with a new administration coming in, it's like, we can argue all day about what was the federal response to this, and honestly, I look around the world globally. Everybody fumbled the bag on this. There's not one single government that had a good grip on this and handled this stuff. And we can look at, and we love to compare countries that have like a population of 2 million to the population of us with 330 million and stuff like that. And then those elements. So like people is obviously going to be a big factor how something stops and goes, because it's like you said, if you're healthy, then you know what I mean? You're not at risk of going out and being around people and stuff like that. But it's like, and I know people who know they're sick. They know they have COVID. Right, but they're like, well, they may personally like live by themselves, right? Especially younger people may like live by themselves, live with younger people. So let them be sick, but like in their general home setting, they're like, all right, I'm cool because I know they're not gonna get sick or harm someone else. So it's a selfish mentality and stuff. It's American mentality at times to be kind of invincible a lot of things as well and just ignore often. Even for the mask part is very interesting. How I understand it's annoying wearing a mask and stuff and everything in different settings. But I see it as something that's happening around literally the world. The entire world is doing this. I mean, if COVID was happening just in America, I'd be all in on that. I'd be like, I bet, this or step of boundaries, X, Y, and Z. And I'm a firm believer two things can occur at the same time. how you can say, yes, this mask mandate and stuff. Yeah, I actually agree. Maybe over a step of political boundary stuff, right? And at the same time, you may argue, well, wearing masks could also reduce transmission of COVID potentially too. So it's like two things concur at the same time. And so as I transition here to that vaccine point, right? So in general with vaccines, right? And before we even get to like the whole, everybody has their pros and cons and how they feel about vaccines. But in generally speaking, how long do vaccines typically get tested on a certain virus or something like that before it gets released to the general public? And then two,
Uh,
and as follow-up question go on that as well, is this being rushed to the people, this COVID vaccine? And what's and also I know a lot of people are skeptical of it. What is the effective time frame that people may feel comfortable about seeing this out before they decide, okay, I'll go get vaccinated or not?
So, typical vaccination as far as like being approved, like FDA approved, I think it's like 3 to 5 years. It might be a little bit longer depending
Yeah,
on
that's what I was
what
thinking.
it
I was
is.
like, yeah.
Yeah, and and they came up with this virus within what, or this vaccine within what, like
Less
12
than a
to
year.
15 months.
Yeah, less than a
Yeah,
year almost. Yeah.
okay, so this is the trick bag that they try to put people in. And they try to say, oh, well, you got all these scientists around the world that are working on it. It's like, okay, well, all these scientists around the world told you that ivermectin works. Some of them told you that hydroxychloroquine works, and there's evidence that it works, and y'all ain't using that. Everybody else is saying that this is a false cure because some dummy ingested fishbowl cleaner that had HCQ in it. But it's like, that's not HCQ. It's got HCQ plus a bunch of other shit in it. Like,
Right.
that doesn't condemn the treatment itself. But see, that's how the media uses that's how the media paints narratives to get you to do what they want you to do. And with this vaccine, everything has been, wash your hands, wear a mask, stay inside, wait for the vaccine. Okay, so the thing about the vaccine is that, so you got two vaccines that are on the market right now. But one of them's from Pfizer and one of them is from Moderna, I think. There's two big companies working with another small company. It's Pfizer and Merck, and I'm not sure which one is working with the other small company, but those
Okay.
two companies got their hands in them.
Right.
So both of them are mRNA vaccines, which are different from traditional vaccines that we use, because these excuse me, these mRNA vaccines, basically what they do is you're injecting a code into your body that your body can read and make whatever is inside of that code. So, brief biology lesson. So inside your body, obviously you have DNA, but you also have RNA. DNA is the code for all of the proteins that are supposed to be made inside of your body. So when it's time for those proteins to be made, you have enzymes that come in and create RNA. RNA is then sent to your ribosomes, and it is read by your ribosomes, and then the ribosomes actually spit the protein out. These two steps are called transcription and translation, where the protein code is transcribed into the RNA and it is translated by the ribosome into a protein. So what happens with the mRNA vaccine is they inject the preformed mRNA, so they bypass the transcription step. You don't have to worry about anything that's coming from your DNA. That RNA gets shuttled directly to your ribosomes, which translated into what the code is primed for. So the specific code that these mRNA vaccines encode for is the spike glycoprotein. So what happens is it gets into your cells, the ribosomes read it, and it expresses the protein on the outside of your cells. So what happens is then your body recognizes it and starts to create antibodies to kill it. So again, like I was saying earlier, the problem with this vaccine is that mRNA is actually degraded really fast inside of your body, which is why you have to take 2 shots.
Mhm.
Well, for most of them, I think for one of them, you have to take 2 shots. One of them is an initial shot, and the second one is a booster shot. So it's there because if the mRNA gets degraded too fast, you won't build immunity to it. Also, if your immune system is weak, you won't build immunity to it. So you have to have that second shot to basically make sure that you have enough antibodies, or you can create the antibodies that you need in order to fight the infection off if you actually get it. So with these vaccines, again, they're still going through your immune system, because they even tell you what, like conventional vaccines that you take, that if you're immunocompromised, you're not supposed to take them, because the vaccine itself can induce sickness in your body, and it may be something that you're not able to recover from. Plus, the other part that is getting vaccine injury. Everybody knows about vaccine injuries and things that can happen as a result of vaccination. And the scary thing about this vaccine is that it is rushed. And again, the trick back they try to put everybody in is that, oh, you got all these scientists that have been working on it for the past years. Okay, you got scientists that work on vaccines every single day, and they don't get authorized for emergency use by the FDA every day. Like more research needs. There is no long-term research out there on what mRNA vaccines do long-term. There's no long-term research on it. You have the short-term research on it, and even the short-term research is not like the side effects you don't want them, especially when there's you can get autoimmune disorders from this vaccine, and a lot, and they're not publicizing this, but it's like they try to make it seem like the vaccine is the only way that you actually go out and integrate into society. And this is the thing, this is the political part of it. And again, this is the next trick bag they're going to put people in. The government's not going to mandate vaccines for everybody. It can't. There's no way. You can't. The federal government cannot override states' rights like that. All it takes is for one state to say no, and then the rest of them can say no, because they know that the federal government can't override state sovereignty. So what's going to happen is they're going to get the corporations to do their dirty work. You're going to have a vaccine to go back to work. You have to have a vaccine to get on a flight. You have to have a vaccine to go to a concert. You have to have a vaccine to go into any kind of public space where there's a bunch of people gathering at. And if you don't have a vaccine, then they have the right to refuse to let you in. The good thing about it is that these vaccines are not FDA approved. They are authorized for emergency use. That is two totally different things. So you can't opt out of taking the vaccine with no penalty at this point. And that is the good thing about it being rushed, because people don't have to take the vaccine if they don't want to. But as this wears on and there's more data that comes out, and they do start to feel comfortable with letting people, or with giving people the vaccine and then mandating stuff afterwards, then you're going to have your vaccine papers in order. Basically, either I got the vaccine or I'm not taking the vaccine, and this is my exemption because of it. So if you don't want to take the vaccine, go ahead and start getting papers in order now. If you want to take the vaccine, hey, knock yourself out. I'm not telling you to take it one way or the other. Only thing I'm saying is, as a scientist, I'm not taking it because it has to go through your immune system anyway. So I would just rather strengthen my immune system, if anything. And then B, there's no long-term data on what this stuff is going to do to you long-term. So I would rather wait and take my chances. At this point, may the strongest immune system win, because that's what it is anyway. So I'd just rather focus on that than anything else.
Right. And I think it's very important. And thank you for breaking it down like that. Because that's one thing I was, intrigued. And a lot of people, even with vaccines, it's been interesting to see with this COVID vaccine, right? Because people who are quote unquote pro-vaxxers or anti-vaxxers, or maybe, right? But one generalization, like they call on the Venn diagram coming together, right? Is people have skepticism towards the vaccine. Even people I know who are straight up like, yeah, vaccines are safe, healthier. Like even my brother, for example, he's more on that side. But he's like, well, I don't know, I'm gonna take it right away. I mean, it just came out. Even my mom's on that type time. So I've been interested to see how people who typically are all do trust the government, think everything's all great and stuff like that. They will never harm us. But but they're having their skepticism to this. And I was gonna ask that, right, in the science community, about how it's very interesting how politics plays in this in the media, and how you have such contrasting views on certain things and certain treatments, saying, oh, like the high hydroxychloroquine, and like how some people say, oh, that's cool and use it. And some, Trump administration people are pushing it. Then Dr. Trump was like, oh no, you can't use that, right? And then just how everything is talked about in news and media, right? And it's very interesting to see, like, for example, you could say that in America, we have over, 200,000 plus people have died from COVID. And that's unfortunate, right? But if I said, well, only 4% of our country had died from COVID, it doesn't hit the same, because we have 30 million people. And sometimes we don't take it into account. Again, we look at other countries and what's going on there, but we never look at their numbers. We also don't look at the political structure. We have a democratic system here. And some countries where it's communism, where it's dictatorships, it's totalitarian, it's easy to tell people, stay inside or you die. I mean, there is no there's no choice here. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, so we forget about that piece. We're like, I saw recently, like in Canada, I saw a picture, like people, like they busted down some house because they had a gathering where 6+ people there or something like that. And it's like, you think that's what people act like they think is happening here. Like, well, no, that's actually not going down here. But y'all, sometimes we cap it. I think American privilege at times, we kind of just using apple to oranges and false equivalencies. We compare this. And of course, I think with this country and the media and the political spectrum, how it's kind of was very divided, and people already living in a sense of chaos as it is, with the social justice element happening earlier in the year. It's like that. Then throw a pandemic and an election year. I mean, it's just like the perfect recipe for just confusing it and chickens running with the heads cut off.
Mm-hmm.
So in general, right, we as we come to kind of wrap up things up here a little bit soon. So again, COVID for now is not going anywhere right away because people are still, we're here, we're still trying to deal with it and stuff like that, right? And as much as I think that it's almost a disservice to the people, could we talk about masks? We can talk about social distancing stuff, right? But as you alluded to, right, even with a vaccine, it don't matter if your immune system's messed up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what are some things that actors can do to try to help improve or better the immune system and stuff?
One thing, get out the house. Like, it's so crazy to me, like how they want people to stay in the house so bad, and it's like the vitamin D serum concentrations are inversely proportional to the number or to severity of COVID cases. The higher your vitamin D serum level is, the lower the incidence of the quote unquote bad reaction to COVID. Whereas if you have low serum vitamin D, then it's more likely that you had a bad symptom. So first thing, get out the house. Like, don't be sitting up here, sitting in front of TV all day, all doom and gloom. Get out the house, take a walk, and don't walk out. The one thing that I hate when I'm outside is seeing people walk outside with masks on and there's nobody around them. Like, bro.
Yo, right.
And that's how you know that, like, people just lose all common sense when they're scared. And it's just like they're just doing whatever they see on TV. And it's like, man, y'all don't need to step back to think that the mask itself, again, is for sick people. It's not for healthy people. And if you're healthy, why the hell are you wearing a mask outside? And it's like, do you not realize how many different other particles you're breathing in, especially with like the wind blowing, cars moving? Like, do you really think that you're going to catch COVID from somebody across the street coughing? Like, come on, man. Like, y'all got to use some kind of common sense at some point. Right. So get out the house. That's the best way for you to get vitamin D. That's the natural way that your body synthesizes vitamin D. Vitamin C and zinc, man, those are your big antivirals. They're your big antiviral vitamins and minerals. Magnesium as well, vitamin A. Like, all of these things prevent oxidative stress. They prevent inflammation. They're antiviral inside your body, and they support the natural mechanisms that you have for your immune system to kill these things on your own. You have to understand it. Like, your immune system, while it's not perfect, is pretty close to it. Like, it's almost like a bridge. Like, nobody builds a bridge expecting for it to collapse. But your bridge does need periodic maintenance so that the cars can keep going back and forth over it so that it doesn't collapse. So everything is built to withstand whatever's in the environment, but you do have to have support for it from time to time, especially when you encounter something that's different. So the only thing you really need to be doing is, supporting your immune system. Make sure you're getting your vitamins, make sure you're getting outside, make sure you're getting, just some kind of activity. A lot of things, what's really getting people is that you got all these people sitting inside watching the news 24/7. They don't go outside. They're not eating nutritious food. A lot of people are just, ordering, from wherever. Nobody's really taking the time out to like cook and make nutritious meals for themselves. They're just picking up hyper processed garbage. And so it's like, well, you're basically creating the breeding ground for COVID, man. Like y'all sitting in here. And people don't realize that, like, fear as a vibration lowers your immune response. So when you're sitting there, watching the news every 5 minutes, whether or not it's the election or, the pandemic or, stuff going on with the stock market or, the eventual dollar crash, like, there's so many things going on right now. And if you're sitting there taking this stuff in 24/7, you're naturally going to be less, you're actually going to be more susceptible to the virus than anybody else is. Fear is going to kill you faster than the virus does. So, like, that's, just arm yourself with the correct information, ask the correct questions, and at bare minimum, strengthen your immune system. There's a lot of stuff out there, a lot of good info out there on there on strengthening your immune system. So you just really just get those bars, man, and just don't stay in the house, man. Get up out the house and still live, man. Like, that don't mean you got to go around a bunch of people, but just don't stay in the house all the time. Like, get out, take a walk, just be out in the fresh air, get you some sunlight. Like, that's what you need to be doing right now.
Right. And I appreciate that. And I think it's all very good for us to understand. It's like, there are some things we can do. Like, sometimes we act like, it's just a death sentence. Like, all right, we just have to stay in the house and just wait it out. So, well, no, you can be proactive and do things in the meantime. Like you said, that vitamin C, getting that zinc in you, these minerals and things, and stuff in general that can help improve your immune system so you don't get sick as a whole. Because yeah, COVID's going to eventually move on at some point in terms of this where we're at, but you're always susceptible to being sick still. It's very interesting. You have people who are, maybe morbidly obese or always health risk, and you're yelling at someone else, just wear your mask. And it's like, well, yeah, but it ain't that simple. You also have other elements we need to reach on. And communication, because like you said, that fear part I think is really big, because I think a lot of people in life live in fear, right? Like you said, whether it's constantly watching the news, election, the social justice stuff, pandemic, all those elements. And especially when you're already susceptible to just being misled as a whole, then lowers your immune system and stuff like that. Yeah, you're probably definitely going sick. If you're sitting worrying all day about, I'm scared I'm gonna get COVID, you're gonna get COVID. I mean, it's almost, unfortunately, the human psychology and kind of goes back to chemistry, like you said, right? How everything all comes together and all these parts are being used in understanding that element, right? Because understanding for this virus, you understand science, you understand mathematics, right? You understand psychology of human, coming together and stuff. So it's very interesting how that's all being used. So, man, if you had any last words or anything like that you want to say, man, anything else you want to tell the people at all about, just in general, about yourself, COVID, moving forward, any endeavors you got going on you want to talk about?
Hey man, as far as COVID goes, just stay sharp, man. Stay sharp and question everything. That's all you can really do. Because it's a lot of stuff that's been revealed that's not what you think it is. It's just really setting you up for something else that's gonna happen down the line. So y'all just be aware of that. I don't really have anything else going on right now. Like I said, I'm in the lab basically 24/7. Got some papers that we getting ready to publish from our lab.
Okay.
And that's really all I'm focused on right now. But I am back on Twitter, so people want to follow me on Twitter. You can follow me at Dr._TJ Ricks. I'm a little bit more active on there now. I still take my little sabbaticals from the timeline every now and then, because it's still wild shit going on out there. But
that's a fact.
But yeah, no, that's basically where you can find me at.
Okay, cool. Well, TJ, man, tonight we definitely appreciate you tuning in with me today, man. Having this conversation. I want us to talk to someone about this who understands all the elements, but also can be objective. Because in science, you gotta be objective. All right, there's no time for subjectivity.
You really do. And that's the funny thing about the whole believe science movement, is that like they're almost turning it into a religion where like you just have to believe everything that's on the TV. But it's like, for every one scientist on the TV that's telling you that this is serious, you have to do X, Y, Z, you got another scientist over saying like, hey, we use this treatment and we got this out of here within like a week. Like, what are y'all waiting on? So it's science as a discipline is not static, it's dynamic, it's always changing. So like, you can't say believe science, because there are things that we thought 10 years ago were true, that we now know, because we have better equipment, we have more sophisticated instrumentation, that we know is not true anymore, or we know it's an artifact now, because if you put it in a different medium or in a different context, it does something different. So you can't sit here and say believe science knowing that the nature of science itself is questioning everything. So that doesn't make sense for those two things to exist in the same space.
So definitely question everything, man. Be objective, think for yourself, and be smart, make common sense, and don't get caught up in emotions. All right, man, appreciate you tuning in today, checking in with me. And as usual, stay tuned, stay hip, stay connected.